So there you have it. The very first college football playoff rankings of the 2023 season are ours to unpack, disagree with, agree with, pick apart. All that's to say, we have them now. Now, if your team isn't where you want them to be, that's okay because we have a lot of football left to be played. The beautiful thing about how things stand right now, and I understand we're getting to 12 teams here soon when it comes to the playoff format. Right now, we have a 12-week playoff. That is the college football regular season. Typically, we get Selection Sunday and we say, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense by nature of how the regular season and the conference championship games played out. So, even with that being said, this is a great reference point for us as to where the committee sees these teams and ranks their wins at this point in time for the rest of the season. It's kind of setting the course for us. It's not the road map to where things will be at the end of the season, but it's a great place for us to start. So first things first, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. College football and only college football every single day of the year. We appreciate y'all in advance for being dialed in. Let us know in the comment section below if you think the committee got it right. Let's go team by team here, starting with the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 1. Listen, you thought they'd be number 1. We thought they'd be number 1. Men lie, women lie. Resumes don't lie typically unless you're like a finance major and you're applying for a summer internship. In that case, we feel you do what you got to do. But Ohio State, they have 2 top 10 wins, 1 on the road at Notre Dame, took care of business at home against Penn State. If you disagree with where they're at right now, you probably have an issue with their offense, probably have an issue with Kyle McCord. That's okay because Ohio State, you would imagine by nature of who they have left on their schedule, hint, hint, Michigan at the end of the year. If they end up running the table and go undefeated, go wire to wire, and they're number 1 when the rankings come out on Selection Sunday, it's because Kyle McCord elevated his game. But let's just say this. Let's just say they are playing with less than ideal quarterback play right now, and they still have that resume. They're still undefeated. What does that say about the rest of this roster? What does that say about the defense that's currently holding opponents to 10 points a game? It's a tough, physical Ohio State football team. It's different than what we've been used to when it comes to the Buckeyes. But even so, I don't think you can argue with the resume. And we're going to see where they stand when it comes to that game against Michigan at the end of the year. At number 2, you got the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, if you wanted Georgia at 1, I don't have a ton of pushback for you when it comes to what they have on their resume. There's probably a little bit less than what Ohio State has, like we just mentioned. They've got the ranked win against Kentucky. And a lot of people, if you think Georgia's too high, you say, well, who have they played? Well, they were supposed to play Oklahoma. That didn't happen. Georgia's played who they've played, and I think they're starting to play their best football right now heading into November. That's scary for the rest of college football as this roster starts to find their footing as a 2023 operation. It's not 2022 Georgia. It's not 2021 Georgia. This Georgia football team is their own. And I think as they grow into that, they're going to do it at the exact right time. Because what I said about their schedule, how they, quote unquote, haven't played anybody yet. Well, that will not be true these next 3 weeks. As things stand right now, they are set to play 3 top 20 teams: Missouri, Ole Miss, and at Tennessee. So Georgia, they got their work cut out for them. They're number 2 right now. You wonder if Kirby Smart doesn't kind of grin a little bit at these first rankings and say, okay, that's all I need. That's all this team needs. A little bit of material to put on the bulletin board. Yeah, we'll be good. We'll roll. So Georgia at 2, I think that's about right. Michigan at 3. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, Michigan hasn't played anybody. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's Michigan's fault. Maybe it's not. But at the end of the day, they have been the most dominant team in the country. I see a new gear with them offensively, 40 points a game, 10 yards a pass, which is good for top 5 in the country. J.J. McCarthy has gone from being a part of this offense, kind of playing his role, to now taking ownership of the offense. We know they're physical. We know what we're getting with Michigan. Their top 5 in returning production is Michigan from last season, the team that won the Big Ten last year, that is. I think right now the best metaphor for what Michigan is, have they played the Notre Dames of the world? Have they played the Penn States of the world to this point just yet? No. They haven't had to lift very heavy when it comes to their effort on Saturdays. But they're still getting stronger. Instead of doing, heavyweight, low reps, if you're Michigan when it comes to the schedule, I think they're doing lightweight, a lot of reps. Like they've throttled everybody they've played to this point, and I think that's worth something. So the last 3 games of the season are going to determine what Michigan is when it comes to these rankings on Selection Sunday. At Penn State, at Maryland, Ohio State. That is the season. That is the season for Michigan. So if you have an issue with Michigan, look at those 3 games. We'll find out who they are then, but I think it's very fair to have the number 3 right now when it comes to these rankings. For Florida State, they're at number 4. And for Florida State, I think it is very clear. Obviously, they control their own destiny. They're undefeated. If you're an undefeated ACC champion, you are not getting left out of the dance. So what I would encourage you to do is take a peek at these rankings, say, that's nice. Throw the blinders on, one step at a time. Step by step, just keep climbing the mountain. Keep climbing. Trust the climb, if you will, if you're a Florida State fan. A top 5 neutral site win over LSU. I think that's going to age well. The win over Duke is another ranked win to your resume. Again, just put on the blinders. You're at Pitt, which is a little bit sneaky, left on the schedule, Miami, and at Florida. Take care of business. If you're undefeated, you're in. All right, so win in, you're in is the mission. If you're Florida State, don't worry too much about being 4. Or if you're going to be 3 next week or 5 the week after, just handle business. Good things will happen. At number 5, you got Washington. And some folks are going to say, well, Washington has that win over Oregon, and Washington should be higher. Same thing I said for Florida State. Take care of business, win the conference, you're in the dance. I have a very difficult time believing that the college football landscape will shake out in a sense where even a one-loss Pac-12 champ doesn't find their way in. Michael Penix Jr. in that offense, it's like watching the Harlem Globetrotters. They're just a spectacle to behold when they're playing football. Offensively, that is. The big resume booster for them is that win over Oregon, very obviously. Again, I'll say it again. Even if they lose a game somewhere along the schedule, at that point, you probably lose a little bit of control of your own destiny. But again, I don't think a one-loss conference champ is getting left out from the Pac-12. So Washington, handle business, step by step, find your way in there. Now at number 6, you got Oregon. I will say this. I think it's going to be difficult for both Oregon and Washington to find their way in. Both of them to find their way into the college football playoff by nature of what else we have going on across the landscape of different conferences. Oregon, though, even though they have that one loss, I think they do control their own destiny because their loss is to Washington on the road, top 10 team. 3 points is how they lost that game. I think Oregon right now, and Herb Street said this on the broadcast, I don't think anybody in the country wants to play Oregon right now. Yes, they have one loss. No, they don't have the best resume. But by nature of how they're playing, what they put on tape against Utah, I think sent a message to the entire country. And I'll also say this for Oregon, I think that the way they're built on the line of scrimmage is something that's going to show itself more and more as we move into November. Because in November, man, last third of the season, everyone's dinged up, everybody's hurt. What you have from a skill player perspective may or may not be there, but those big boys up front, man, if you can run the football and stop the run, and Oregon is number 1 in the country in terms of yards per carry going into last week at right around 6 yards a carry, they're going to be fine. Experienced quarterback in Bo Nix. I think gritty operation that starts at the top with Dan Lanning running the show. Oregon, if they take care of business and they run the table, I expect them to meet Washington in the Pac-12 title game. If you win that game and avenge your one loss, I think you find your way in. So to recap it for you, I think the committee is right here. Ohio State at 1, best resume. Georgia at 2. They've played well to this point. A lot of meat on the bone left when it comes to their schedule. Speaking of meat on the bone, Michigan, the last 3 games of their season is their season. At Penn State, at Maryland, Ohio State will define where they are on Selection Sunday. Florida State at 4, put on the blinders, keep it pushing. Washington at 5, control their own destiny clearly as they are an undefeated potential conference champion. If they have one loss, we'll talk about it, but I think you still feel good about your chances. For Oregon, you're number 6. I think if they just find a way to win the conference with that one loss against Washington, no such thing as a good loss, but still I think they got to feel pretty good about finding their way in. In November, I expect them to play their best football. So that is the first college football playoff rankings. Excited to hear your thoughts. We'll talk about it tomorrow on our live show right here, 11 a.m. Eastern. Andy Staples has a show going on probably right now. If you're watching this after the rankings dropped, make sure you check that out. Bottom line, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing going on right here on the On3 YouTube channel. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.